Happy Tuesday, folks, and welcome back to WrestleRant, where I, Graham GSM Matthews, break down all the pay-per-views that I watch on the WWE Network. Today we're talking about In Your House 2, the second ever installment of the show from July 23rd, 1995. So if you checked out my initial review of In Your House from last Tuesday, you would know that it's not a great show. There's only really one match, the opener, that's worth checking out. Other than that, pretty ho-hum show. I think it was like Hakushi versus Bret Hart or something. Other than that, the show sucked. This show, honestly, not much better. And for those wondering what's with the subtitles, why aren't not subtitles, the fucking subheadings, whatever, like the In Your House, good friends, better enemies, or whatever. We wouldn't get those until like 1996. So there's a lot of these early installments that are only In Your House 2, In Your House 3, and so on and so forth. There's really no subheading, extra title, whatever, beyond the In Your House 2. That's it. But it did have a country theme. The event emanated from Nashville, Tennessee, so the hometown or the backyard of Jeff Jarrett, the Intercontinental Champion at the time. This show was pretty much all about him. You had the Roadie, a.k.a. Road Dogg, in the opener. You had Jeff Jarrett defending the Intercontinental Championship on the show against Shawn Michaels, which I'll get to momentarily. And you also had Jeff Jarrett doing a concert, which the show is pretty much built around. That must have been probably the biggest thing in the entire show, even over the main event, which also sucked, which I'll get to momentarily as well. But it was Jeff Jarrett, or not really Jeff Jarrett, but I'll get to that in a second too, but it was Jeff Jarrett doing a rendition of Baby House Tonight or something like that. I forgot the name of the song. But yeah, his performance was pretty much the focal point of the show. And of course, it wasn't him singing, it was the Roadie, but that would come into play later on. You can kind of tell if you listen in closely, you can tell it's Road Dogg. But if you didn't already know that, if you didn't know that previously, then you would probably buy that it is Jeff Jarrett, because the lip singing is on point, maybe even better than Mariah Carey. So moving on anyway, I thought that was actually one of the better parts of the show, because the song really is not all that bad. I'm not a country guy at all, but I thought it was a pretty decent song. It is pretty catchy too, so definitely better than the main event. But anyway, we kick off the show with the Roadie taking on the 1-2-3 Kid. The Roadie scores the victory in about a 7-minute match. This was pretty good between two future members of D-Generation X and the Road Dogg and X-Pac. So really kind of like a nothing match in terms of what it meant. It was just kind of there, but the match itself, from an in-ring standpoint, I thought was pretty good. So I thought to kick off the show for the second straight show with the In Your House pay-per-views, I thought the opener was one of the better parts of the entire event. What was not so great, unfortunately, was Men on a Mission, King Mabel and Sir Mo taking on Razor Ramon and Savio Vega. It was King Mabel and Sir Mo going over. Razor Ramon was the one who got pinned, which to me made no sense. I guess Savio Vega just debuted. They wanted to protect him, whatever. But I just thought that was so fucking stupid, because Razor Ramon was really the only one in this match that mattered. Men on a Mission, King Mabel, we talked about, I think it was Mabel versus Ramon, or whatever the match was at the last In Your House pay-per-view. These two were feuding at that time as well. And that was before he won King Mabel had won a qualifying match, and Razor Ramon had just beaten somebody, and Savio Vega came to his aid. I forgot exactly what happened. Or he won a handicap match against Jeff Jarrett and Roadie, I think what it was, the Roadie. But anyway, this match sucked. Razor Ramon tried to make it passable, tried to make it, at least watchable. But Men on a Mission were just terrible. The new gimmicks did not help whatsoever. Putting the King of the Ring crown on King Mabel, on Mabel, Big Daddy V, Viscera, whatever, what have you, was an awful idea. I know Vince had a hard-on for big guys, and this guy was fucking 400, 500 pounds, but he sucked. Now, if that was any indication, was SummerSlam 1995, about a month later when he faced Diesel for the belt, which was also absolutely awful. So that was the real, that was the real indication, that was the real sign that this guy was terrible and was not going to draw a dime as a fucking top main event guy. So thank God they abandoned that push for Mabel beyond that point. But anyway, we go from that atrocity to another match I could not have cared less about. Bam Bam Bigelow beating Henry O'Godwin in a match that meant absolutely nothing, went probably 4 minutes longer than it should have, at 5 minutes long in its entirety. I like Bam Bam Bigelow. He was a decent babyface. He was over. People liked him, but the match was really nothing special at all. It meant nothing. I don't know why it even happened. Like I said, a 5-minute match should have been one. Should have been a quick squash, whatever. The real main event of the show, in my opinion, came in the middle of the show for the Intercontinental Championship. It was Jeff Jarrett defending against, as I said earlier, Shawn Michaels, in a fucking killer match. And in my opinion, the greatest match Jeff Jarrett, in my opinion, that I've ever seen, had in WWE. One of the final matches, if not the final match he had in the company with China, the Good Housekeeping match, was actually pretty entertaining, a lot more entertaining than I thought it would be. But from an in-ring standpoint, just a pure, an actual match, I thought this was probably the best match Jeff Jarrett ever had in WWE. This I thought was just really, really good. And to no surprise, it was fucking Shawn Michaels in the ring with him. So Jeff Jarrett is not a bad worker. I thought he's always been at least decent to mediocre, whatever. He has never been a great wrestler. And I never really thought he was justified in being a main event position in WCW and later TNA, whatever. Now, Global Force, he's not wrestling main events in his own promotion, which doesn't even have TV, but that's another rant for another day. But at least with a guy like Shawn Michaels who can bring the best out of him, he can become a good wrestler in one match. I mean, Bret Hart, there's been stories of Bret Hart who's very much the same way, who could get a good to great match out of almost anybody. And that was definitely the case with Shawn Michaels as well, needless to say. So this was an awesome match. Shawn Michaels, in the end, hits the sweet chin music, 1, 2, 3. So despite this being the hometown of Jeff Jarrett, the crowd goes nuts for the new Intercontinental Champion being crowned in Shawn Michaels. Awesome match, almost 20 minutes long, got the time it deserved. And that was really it. The show peaked with that match because the subsequent 2 matches were really not that good. The tag title match, Owen Hart and Yokozuna beating the Allied Powers, Lex Luger and British Bulldog, to retain. Decent match, at least when Owen Hart and the Bulldog were in there. Other than that, this match was just kind of there. Really kind of standard tag team match, a lot like the other tag team title match from the previous In Your House show that also really did not do anything for me at all. The main event, Diesel and Psycho Sid, a rematch from the initial In Your House pay-per-view, this time a lumberjack match. And somehow the match got even worse than it was the first time around, which also sucked. This match was even worse. The lumberjack stipulation is rarely ever exciting to begin with, but you put 2 guys in there who cannot fucking work to save their lives, at least with each other. I mean, I know Diesel had a couple good matches in WWE with, Bret Hart and maybe a few other, Shawn Michaels too. Sid, not really. I mean, other than, I guess Shawn Michaels is the common denominator with Jeff Jarrett, Diesel, Psycho Sid, pretty much everybody. You can get a good match out of anybody, as I said earlier. But together, it was just terrible. This match sucked. In the end, Diesel won to retain his title. No one could have given a shit. Diesel ran down every top heel or quote-unquote top heel in the company. And it's no surprise that no one could have cared less about these guys from Ted DiBiase's $1 Million Corporation going up against the champion, because they always fucking lost, whether it was to Taker, to Diesel. They were glorified losers, so who the fuck could possibly care? So this was really a waste of time. The overall show I thought was really not that good, maybe a little bit better than the initial In Your House show, which just was pretty much boring from start to finish. This was a bit longer, I think, but if I remember correctly. But yeah, like I said, the only real match worth watching, other than the opener, which was not must-see, but I thought it was good, was Shawn Michaels and Jeff Jarrett. Check that out at your leisure. Everything else is pretty much missable. These In Your House shows, I do promise you, get better in time, so just bear with me. 1995, I don't care who you are or what pay-per-view you are. For the most part, there were some decent pay-per-views, very few. Not every pay-per-view in 95 sucked, but a majority of them did. Like WrestleMania 11 fucking was terrible, so a lot of these shows were just not good. This show is no exception, so it's really not the In Your House name that sucked. It was really that year that was just not good. But anyway, so check out Michaels and Jarrett. Other than that, stay tuned for In Your House 3, the review of that show, coming next week here on the channel. So until then, guys, be sure to check me out on the Twitter machine. Follow me there at WrestleRant. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Don't forget that .Matthews. Give the page an old thumbs up. And last but not least, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. All support is amazingly appreciated. So have a great week, guys. Stay tuned until tomorrow for my, what's up tomorrow? The hashtag AskGSM, obviously moving from Mondays to Wednesdays now. So stay tuned for me to answer your questions from Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube right here on the channel tomorrow and hashtag AskGSM. So until then, guys, have an awesome week. Have a tremendous Tuesday. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch you fine folks down the road.